Hello and welcome to the MAC weather page for this Monday, November 21st, 2016. And today for our forecast, we have our winter forecast for the 2016-2017 season. And this is an update, the final update. The first one was issued in September, and this one's a final, and there's not a huge amount of changes, but confidence certainly is a little bit higher now. If we look at some of the analog years, these are just a few of them and some of their effects. 2013 and 14 Breckenridge, we recorded our second snowiest season ever. This is a strong analog year. You can see we had 67 inches of snow. That would be pretty incredible, especially when you consider, I think, with the northern jet stream spending much of the time near or south of us, I think snowfall, unlike last year, will hang around on the ground once it falls, more so than last year for sure. In 2008 and 2009, another analog year, Saginaw recorded 36 inches, 3 feet of snow in the month of December. And back in 1995-96, another analog year, November was a snowy month in Saginaw with 23 inches of snow. And these are just some of the stronger analogs that we'll stack up against. Now, if we look at last year, we look at some of the forecast parameters, temperatures and precipitation. We talk about December, January, and February, meteorological winter. We were forecasting last year near to above normal, and obviously at 4 degrees, 4.5 degrees above normal per day, we were certainly quite warm. Precipitation forecasted I had last year was to be near to below normal, and we ended up just a little bit below normal, so right on there at minus 0.2 of an inch. And then snowfall, I figured we'd be near to above normal with a couple of southern storms possibly allowing us to reach that goal. Our normal snowfall is 40 inches. We picked up 44.3 inches, so we were just a little bit above normal there. So I feel pretty good about last year's forecast. And again, the big story last year, any of the snow we had really didn't stick around much. So if you had snowmobile or like to do anything around this area, wasn't a very good winter at all. You had to go up north if you wanted to get much or if any in the way of snowmobiling. And here's a graphical look at what we had last year. You can see February, March being pretty snowy months, well above normal, but the rest of the months were well below normal. And you can see for the year we ended up at 110% of normal snowfall, so a little bit above as we had forecasted. And again, you can see only 3 days last year did we record at least 8 inches of snow on the ground, and only 10 days of 4 inches. So you can see you can't really do much out there in the snow around this area when you have so few days to get out and play. Last year was highlighted by a very strong ENSO 3-4 El Nino, and we had the warmer than normal waters across the Gulf of Alaska down into the west coast. And we thought that would help offset this very strong El Nino, but it certainly overpowered the pattern with the actual warm air extending up, and that really created a lot of warm air across the United States, especially here in December. We were over 9 degrees above normal. This year, not so much the case. We still have our warm waters across the Gulf of Alaska, and that's a good indicator to help get us cold and snowy here. And more importantly, the strong El Nino is gone. We are officially now into a weak La Nina. And again, that's some of our harshest winters we have here in Michigan, is when we have a negative neutral or a weak La Nina. A stronger La Nina would indicate much more cold across the far eastern portions of the U.S. And again, I think we're in a pretty good position to have at least a pretty cold and snowy winter. And I think December could really get off to a pretty big start. Right now, it could be a December to remember. And if we look at the snowfall here, about 9 days ago, I talked about how I think we'd see this area begin to fill in here over the next 10 days. If we fast forward to this morning, you can see quite a bit of snowfall has increased in this area, the snowpack. And again, if we reverse that and you look back up here, this area also filling in quite nice. And again, that's going to continue to be the case as we become very active. We have shorter wavelengths beginning to occur, and that creates more blocking, creates stronger jet stream, more powerful systems. And again, we're going to start to get pretty active. And you can see what I'm expecting for much of the winter time is that, of course, these don't hold stationary, but we expect a large upper ridge to pretty much anchor itself back and forth around Hudson Bay or just to the west of Hudson Bay. And we expect a pretty strong northern jet to dip down underneath that ridge with lots of troughing. And I think we're going to see a parade of storms, especially for the month of December. And that's going to potentially lay down a lot of snow. Now, these storms could go well to our south and miss us to the south. They could go to our north and we could get more rain here. But again, at least we're sitting at the poker table and we have a chance to be a big winner. But only time will tell. But certainly this looks like it could be a pretty interesting winter coming up ahead. If we look at some of the forecasts, this is the forecast temperatures from the National Weather Service or from NOAA, and you can see they have the coldest air coming across the Dakotas into the upper Great Lakes. And as far as precipitation, they have, again, with the storm track coming down to the south, they expect a pretty active pattern across the upper plains and the northern Rockies into the Great Lakes. And again, some of this being quite a bit of extra lake effect snow, warmer and drier across the southeast. And as far as the weatherbell.com, their forecast had updated. They originally had some of the coldest air from the eastern Dakotas back into the Great Lakes. They've shifted that a little farther to the east. Right now, Michigan, southwest Ontario, right in the epicenter of the coldest air, running from about -1 to -3 degrees Fahrenheit per day. So that would be a pretty cold, but not outrageous. But even they indicate the potential for a much, much colder pattern is certainly possible. And as far as snowfall from weatherbell.com, they have the heaviest snow across the Appalachians up into New England, with the 100% or greater than average snowfall across all of the Great Lakes and much of the Midwest and Ohio Valley. And again, I think we could, I'm forecasting about 125% of normal snowfall, which our normal here in Breckenridge is 40 inches. That would be 50 inches, and then I've added a few inches on top of that. If we look at the Bazillion forecast, this is for the city of Chicago. Green represents snow, blue represents rain. And you can see once we get to about mid-December all the way into March, very little as far as liquid precipitation. So they're indicating a pretty consistent cold winter for the Chicagoland area, which would certainly include us here at the Great Lakes. And as far as the 0 Celsius line, you can see we spend most of the winter below that as far as the average daily temperature. So again, the Bazillion model picking up on a pretty cold winter as well. Here's a readout you can read, and I'll post that on the site as far as more descriptive reasoning behind my forecast. And as far as snowfall, you can track that all season long. We're currently at 3.5 inches of, or 3.5% of the normal seasonal snowfall, thanks to a 1.4 inch snowfall that occurred in October. And again, my forecast for the Breckenridge area around 50 to 55 inches. So wherever you're at, take your average and multiply it by 125%, and that's what my forecast is for your area. And again, I'll post some of those anticipated amounts for some of our branches here over the next day or two to the front page. Thanks for stopping by, and have yourself a great day, a great work week, and enjoy the winter coming up, and 73s to all.